Hello, my name is Kiara, and I'll be walking through part 4 of the Watershed Center's Water Quality Investigation Lesson Plan, which is the data share. This is an optional data sharing portion where you can have two different classes or two different schools even collect the same data in different locations, preferably in an upstream and downstream location. You could also think about doing this over time and change the hypotheses and such to be more about how these factors might change throughout a year. And this lesson plan kind of supports sharing the data between schools or classrooms, and explaining or thinking about potential differences in the findings that each class or school finds. And so I'm going to share my screen um, with the lesson plan, and note that, as we move forward, some of these components might get updated, but overall, this lesson plan should look similar to what you found on our website. So for this lesson, it's pretty technology dependent. So, of course, that would be different if you were working within a school between just two classrooms. So if it was between two classrooms that are at the same school, you can ignore the kind of technology component, so the platform for sharing presentations between student groups. Otherwise, we've used WebEx and had students kind of auto-populated into breakout groups. So for this, the first 10 minutes you'll spend with students, we're kind of starting offline or just as individual classes. And we start with data share conversation starter worksheet. And so this worksheet is really designed to help students come prepared to that conversation with the other class or school, and have things that they can say. So you'll have students fill this out, and this references their hypothesis worksheet from the data collection day. So first I'll say, their name, what school they go to, where their school is, an idea that their class had for improving local water quality. So that's thinking more about that data analysis day, where they thought about, if we found low dissolved oxygen, what are some things that we could do? We could put in more rocks and waterfall features to create more riffles and kind of more opportunities for dissolved oxygen to come into that creek. And then they'll reference their hypothesis worksheet here, where they will say, I hypothesized that, and then they'll circle whichever indicator, nitrate, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, or pH that they chose to write a hypothesis about and then they'll circle what they thought it would do, moving downstream. So increase, decrease, or remain the same. Here they'll reference you can either just kind of write these up on the whiteboard so they have them easily at hand, or you can have them reference their environmental thresholds worksheet from the data analysis day, where they wrote down the class average. So they'll write their class averages for pH, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, and nitrate here, and then they'll kind of summarize what they think that says about their water quality. For example, these data tell me that generally our creek has good water quality, but we could use some more dissolved oxygen. And so there are some ways that we can increase the amount of dissolved oxygen in the creek. So once students have done that worksheet, then we'll kind of all come together as two classes or two schools. And the facilitator of this will kind of set them up for saying, you've collected data, you collected the same data that the other school or class collected. You're now going to discuss what you found with the other class and think about why that might be different than or similar to what you found. And that will also be the chance for you to test your hypothesis about how how you thought water quality would change at different places in the watershed, or if you kind of go for the time of year metrics so that the same class can kind of do this whole process. You can think about whether you're proved incorrect or correct about your hypothesis. And so you're going to have students in small groups or in pairs within each classroom, and then those will come together and pair up with another group or pair from the other classroom. And typically, we've given them about 20 minutes total to discuss. That kind of seems to be the point where we've moved past some of the awkward phase and started talking, but it hasn't gone too long to where we start to get distracted. And ideally, each group is 4 students total, but obviously that's dependent on your ability to kind of separate students into groups based on, how many tablets, for example, you might have. And in the past, we've experimented with both kind of pre-assigning breakout groups on WebEx and then kind of just randomly populating the students into breakout groups, and randomly populating breakout groups worked better for us because when students were absent, it didn't kind of mess up the whole flow of which students were together. Students then use that data, or that sentence starter worksheet to have these small group discussions. The kind of chaotic part about this lesson plan is just kind of helping students feel brave, confident enough to kind of talk to the other students. So some help kind of getting started is often useful. So we'll have teachers or assistants kind of walk around helping students just get started with the conversation. Next, we'll kind of pull back, we'll bring students out of the breakout groups or out of the pairs if you're in the same school, and you'll talk about, you can ask students to reflect on the experience. So with this lesson, there's often a pretty big time crunch. So typically moving just straight to the, what did we know? What did we find? Did water quality, did turbidity increase or decrease moving downstream compared to upstream? And what does that tell us about water quality? What if we found, a negative indicator of water quality? What could we do to improve that? So walking through basically just what the students found, and also asking them, why do we think that turbidity, for example, decreased moving downstream? What is the mechanism behind that effect? And that's an opportunity to remind students to think about the visual observations that they made of the creek. So you can say, did you ask the other students, was the water moving fast or slow? And kind of remind students about the underlying mechanisms that affect those different indicators of water quality. Next, I'll just wrap up. You can talk about, one of my favorite things to do is just have students say, I can be a scientist, and pat themselves on the back and remind students that that they just went through the whole scientific process from developing a hypothesis, collecting data, that then disproved or proved their hypothesis, analyzing their data, interpreting their data, and then communicating their findings with other people. So I hope that, this goes well for all of you, and please don't hesitate to reach out with lessons learned or any ideas that you might have for how to improve this lesson. Thanks so much.